Good evening. A month ago tonight, Boston and the rest of the nation were in a state of shock. 2 bombs exploded at the finish line of the Boston Marathon, killing 3 people and injuring hundreds. There were no answers to the who, the what, and the why. Now we know some of those answers, and Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis is here to answer more. But first, this was the scene at the Copley Square Memorial site this afternoon. A lot of people still paying their respects, but a decidedly smaller crowd. We asked a few to give us their reflections on the past month.
It's hit you right in the face. It's unbelievable. I just still can't believe that it happened here in Boston. You know, this shouldn't happen.
I was ready for some new shoes, and I said, you know, instead of buying them up in Beverly, I'm going to come to Marathon Sports and buy a pair of shoes there so that I can support that store and the people there. I'm just here to, you know, kind of show people that, you know, we care and that we haven't forgotten.
It affected so many of us, and it was just it was a tragic event. But the recovery, the spirit that everyone has had, it's amazing. It's truly astounding.
We were down here shopping, and we decided to walk down and see the monument that is set up. It's beautiful. It's a bit overwhelming. I didn't realize it was so big, and it's very nice. I do think about it a lot. I'm still in shock that it happened. It's kind of scary.
And Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis is here. Welcome, Commissioner.
Hi, Emily.
It's been a month. I'm wondering if you've had a chance to kind of reflect personally. I mean, you're so stoic and unflappable, and that's part of your job, but have you just had a moment to think about it in a very personal way?
Sure, especially after meeting some of the victims. Yeah. You know, I went over to the hospital and talked to people that were injured in this, and some of the families of the people who died, and it's just it's a terrible realization that somebody decided to hurt these innocent people, women and children, to try to further some extremist position. It just doesn't make any sense.
Today, you sent us a picture from the Boston Police Department. You raised the flag from half staff to full, the significance being a month?
Right. When we mourn officers who are lost in the line of duty, we follow the military tradition. It's 30 days that we mourn.
So it's for Sean Collier.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Not necessarily for all the people, but it just happens to be exactly a month. I mean, well, no, actually, he was killed later in the war.
A couple of days later. That's right. Yeah.
But so it wasn't not an exact count.
Right. Well, it was 30 days from the time that the incident started, right. And we consider Sean's death part of a continuing incident.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Take me back again. Where were you that day?
I had been at the finish line with my wife and some friends, and we saw the elite runners come across. I spoke to the governor. All the main ceremonies had finished, and so I had to take a phone call with some colleagues on an issue in Washington. So I brought my wife back to the house, and I took the phone call there. And just as I hung up the phone, the conference call, Dan called, Dan Linsky, and he said, I don't know what we've got, boss. We've got 2 explosions, and they're calling for every ambulance we can get. And then he mentioned the word amputations, and when he said that, I felt right away that it was probably an IED.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was right there as well, and I cannot tell you how quickly police and ambulances responded. It was shocking. I've never seen anything like that. It was as if they were hiding in the bushes. Well, some of them were, actually. There was Homeland Security. The big vehicle was right there on the Commonwealth Avenue Mall, so everybody was right there. Mm-hmm. And they instantly, you should be pleased to know, told everybody it was a crime scene.
Right, yeah.
There was no hesitating. So, but you must feel good about the fact that you were able to respond, having so many people that quickly on hand.
Right. Well, we train for these type of unthinkable incidents, and I'm very proud of the work that the men and women did responding there. You know, they literally saved lives. A combination of the police, fire, EMS, and mostly the medical personnel too that were in the tents. Everybody pitched in, and it's remarkable. All the patients were removed in 22 minutes, and of all of the people that were injured, we didn't lose any life after someone had gone to the hospital. So the city is special when it comes to medical care.
At what point did the chain of command get established for who was going to be in charge of this thing? Was it instantaneously going to be the FBI because you assumed it was terror, everybody assumed it was terror? How did that happen? And how did you communicate?
Well, when Dan told me that there were amputations, my next phone call was to Rick Delorier from the FBI. And I told him what we had. I thought that they were IEDs, and I felt that we needed more help because when Al-Qaeda hits, they usually hit 3 times, and we thought there might be a third attack planned. So we marshaled all of the forces that we could pull together. Rick has control of SWAT teams with the FBI and EOD teams, and we needed all of those teams quickly. I called Rick, and then I called Tim Alwyn from the state police. We all know each other personally. We have each other's phone numbers, and they responded quickly with assets right to Ring Road.
How quickly did you just sort out some of the confusion of that afternoon, that fire at the JFK library, reports of other IEDs? I was down there, too, and it sounded like something else went off after the second one. But when did you just sort out that there was no further bombs on the location?
Well, in situations like this, there's a lot of fog of war. There's a lot of contingency planning, too, because you have to expect that other things will happen. And so we work through each individual issue. The JFK incident first came in as a bombing and then as an incendiary device. And after a couple of hours, the fire department was very suspicious of the blaze because it had to be put out with a fire cannon. They couldn't use a regular hose on it. But they still weren't sure what caused it. So we looked at that over a couple of days, and now we're satisfied that it had started innocently. But you have to anticipate that you have serious follow-up incidents and try to respond to them one at a time.
You know, whenever I'm standing down there the last couple of years and I've seen the extremes to which law enforcement goes to protect that finish line area, right, as I mentioned, the Homeland Security satellite vehicle, it seemed like overkill. And how do you know when something is a high-risk event? I mean, the same is not done, as far as I know, for the Boston Pops out to the concert. Is that because you check bags going into that? How do you decide what gets that kind of security? Well,
there's a very sophisticated threat analysis that's done on each of these events. We team up with the Department of Homeland Security, with the FBI, with the State Police Fusion Center. Our own Boston Regional Intelligence Center does assessments inside the city. And they look at things like whether or not it's an international event. So there are press outlets from all over the world at that finish line. If you look at that bridge before, as the elite runners come in, there are a significant number of people taking photos and videotaping. That's a prime place for a terrorist who wants to get a word out on what they did to strike. A little less of a prime place 3 hours, 4 hours later, because a lot of the journalists have left.
So right away, were people interviewing some of the victims to ask what they had seen? Because we've now heard in retrospect that Jeff Bowman, who was the 30-year-old who was so severely injured, lost both of his legs, that he said he saw somebody. Did you get that information right away?
Yes, we did. We were talking about it at the command post that day. Jeff has been tremendous. I met with his brother and sister-in-law the other day, and the whole family has been really, really helpful. But all that information is being brought in through our investigative arm. We have to break this down into segments. We have security of the site. We have other infrastructure that needs to be protected. We have a myriad of things that need to be done by the patrol force. But the investigators are being channeled with responsibilities like collecting video and interviewing witnesses. And all of that chain of command is answering back to the command post. And it worked very, very well. We had the state police there. We had the FBI there, transit police, and the National Guard. Those were really the five, along with the Boston police, those were the five main partners in this.
How soon did you actually have visual images? I'm assuming it was before you released those. That was a Thursday that you released them. I think it was Thursday, yeah. But how soon did you have visual images before that?
Well, we had them before Thursday, but I can't get into the details as to exactly what happened during the course of the investigation. As you know, this is an ongoing federal probe, and the United States Attorney Carmen Ortiz has asked that we not provide any specific information.
Okay, but was there a reason why you released blurry images when clearly you had other ones that were clearer? We
released the best images that we had at that particular time. Yeah.
So what about some of the other stuff that got, some of the social media things that sort of got in the way? The suspects had been caught earlier, and then the bomb scare. Was there really a bomb scare? I mean, did you even know?
You mean
at the courthouse?
Oh, at the courthouse.
Yeah. Was that just kind of a whole lot of fray at that point?
No, there was a bomb scare.
Somebody actually did call one in?
Yeah, but you've got to understand that there were like 67 bomb calls in the first 24 hours. Everybody was on edge. I talked to fire officials from New York today. Their bomb calls went way up in New York after this incident. Yeah.
But can't you trace those calls? Isn't it easy to figure out who did that?
You can, but a lot of times they're legitimate calls. There was a call that we got that there was an active shooter at one of the hospitals, and that was because an employee saw a police officer with a long gun and thought that there was a rifleman in the hospital. That siphoned off resources too. When you see heightened alerts like this and heightened recognition that something's going on, our call volume goes way up.
How soon after the shooting of Sean Collier did you make the connection that was related to the bombings and the suspects were likely the same?
We were looking at I received a call right after Officer Collier was shot from the FBI headquarters, and we had a lot of people trying to determine whether or not there was a connection. The first information was that he was shot in an armed robbery that was occurring. So we didn't think it was connected. But over the course of time,
was there a robbery? Because that's still confusing.
There was a robbery, earlier in the evening. Earlier in the evening that was actually not related to the shooting whatsoever. But it took us a while to sort of get through that. Dan Linsky, when he heard that Sean had been killed, went to the scene. So we had command officers over in Cambridge working very closely with Frank Matthews from the state police, and sort of sifting through the information. And it's a crime scene, it's a homicide, but our instinct was there might be a connection. We had a lot of assets on the other side of the river when this chase started.
And then Danny, the guy who was carjacked, kidnapped, his black SUV Mercedes, I mean, he obviously called after they let him go.
Right.
And that's when you really pulled that together. And they certainly had an idea where they were. They were in Watertown. Right.
And there was an extreme focus on that because they felt it might be related to the murder of the officer. But really, there was no definitive decision until bombs started to go off that these were definitely the same people. We all were suspicious and we were all acting as if they were, but we weren't certain until the first.
Oh, the bombs went off at that scene, you mean, that night?
Right.
That was when you were convinced.
That's right.
We have some picture of that, and that was quite a shootout. I saw you on the news later that night. You said even then it was 200 or 300 rounds of gunfire,
right, and
directed mostly at Tamerlan, the vehicle. I mean, what was everybody shooting at?
Well, the Mass State Police are doing the ballistics check there, and they'll have a full report on that. But just generally, you can say clearly that there were officers from many different jurisdictions, all responding to an area that they weren't all that familiar with. And when they arrived, there were suspects that were firing weapons as well as throwing bombs.
Both of them, or one, or you don't?
Well, without seeing the final report, it's hard to tell. But this was a combat situation, and people used their weapons to try to stop the suspects, and there was a lot of gunfire that night.
MBTA officer Richard Donahue was struck that night, and now it looks like it was likely friendly fire. Do you have any certainty on that yet?
No, we don't, and I don't know that we'll be able to tell definitively because the round will not be removed from his body, from what I understand. But they can clearly put together who was firing from what position and try to make a case as to who did that. But in many ways, it doesn't really make any difference. We'll certainly change our training based upon the incidents that have occurred, regardless of what round happened to hit Officer Donahue. He's a tremendously brave and committed officer, and I can't say enough about all he did that night.
Because it was too chaotic.
Right. I mean, there were people coming from all around, and if people are in a circle and firing weapons, the possibility for friendly fire is very high. But we know this. I mean, we know this in regular police work. These things happen, and we train it up. But we clearly have to pay more attention to it.
Have you ever been a part of anything like what happened on that Friday? Shelter at home, shut down this city, Cambridge, Watertown, parts of Newton, Brookline. Have you ever been a part of anything like that when that manhunt was going on?
No. I mean, the scale was enormous. First of all, the call that I got was that we have individuals throwing bombs at us. You don't hear that in American policing. I don't know of any place that's ever happened before. And responding to the call, the pursuit and the firefight that was going on was just unprecedented.
Johar Tsarnaev now. We heard a few things about him right after he was taken to the hospital, and then when he was transferred, that he was in a medical facility at Fort Devens. Has he talked? Has he said anything? Has he asked about his brother? Has he expressed remorse? Does he, anything from his kid?
Well, there are certainly a lot of FBI agents in Boston, detectives that are working on this case right now. I'd like to be able to tell you the whole story, but I can't get into the details of it.
But you can't tell me.
Right, yeah. This is a very active and very cooperative.
Do they talk to him every day?
Well, I couldn't even answer that question. It's a very active and very cooperative investigation among the agencies that are involved. We're all working together on it. But no, I wouldn't comment on whether he is or is not. There was a special team brought in from Washington to interrogate him, and that's all I can say.
And do you know about his health?
I do. He's improving.
So he's going to be okay? Yeah. You don't know the extent of his injuries or anything?
I wouldn't get into the details on that.
No. So, once again, here you are 1 month out of this, and you think about every step that you all took. Is there anything you would have done differently?
Well, I mean, obviously we regret that it wasn't prevented. I mean, that's our main responsibility. And so we have to look at everything that we did to see if there's anything that happened there where we could have intervened. I've had a chance to see a lot of the evidence, and this kind of attack on a soft target in an area that is not locked down like a presidential visit is hard to prevent, especially if they're only on the scene for a few minutes, and I think that's what happened here.
Yeah, I hope this doesn't mean that people can't bring backpacks to the marathon, because you got to bring water, you got to bring extra shoes, and it's always cold, and then it's hot, and it's,
Right. Actually, some cities have experimented with providing clear bags, plastic bags, so that clearly the runners have to have new clothes and shoes and things like that. But we'll be working with the BAA. The mayor is reviewing a lot of different things right now, and we'll make a determination as to what is the best way to do this.
You've been on quite a whirlwind. You were on 60 Minutes, and then last week you testified before a House Homeland Security Committee. We've got just a couple of questions that we were asked by the head of it, Mr. McCall.
Yep.
Yeah, here we go.
Before the bombing, were you aware of the Russian intelligence warning regarding Tamerlan and the fact that he may travel overseas to meet with extremists?
We have three detectives and a sergeant who are assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. One of my detectives is actually in the squad that investigated that. We have access to all the databases, but we were not, in fact, informed of that particular development.
If you'd had this information before the bombing, would you have done, your police force and would you have done anything differently?
That's very hard to say. We would certainly look at the information. We would certainly talk to the individual. From the information I've received, the FBI did that, and they closed the case out. I can't say that I would have come to a different conclusion based upon the information that was known at that particular time.
Commissioner, after that, you said that those comments were kind of widely misunderstood by the media. How so?
Well, there was a statement made that the FBI had hidden information from us. There's no evidence of that. The FBI investigates almost 1,000 cases through that JTTF, a combination of the FBI and the Boston police. We investigate cases, run down leads, and report it back in the computer system. They do the same thing. So there's no evidence that anybody tried to hide anything from us. It could have been the normal course of business, and it could have been totally and completely appropriate what they did. But I think we just have to look at everything and make sure that that was the case.
So this computer guardian, I figured something like that existed. I didn't know it had a name. You could have tapped into that and seen Tamerlan Tsarnaev's name come up.
If we had known his name, we could have accessed the file. But not knowing that the intelligence came in would make it impossible to do that. So no, if no one mentions the name to you,
but he would have been in there if somebody had mentioned the name.
He apparently was in the system. Correct. Yeah.
Now, Tamerlan and possibly Dzhokhar are being tied to that horrendous. I think it was the fall of 2011, triple murders in Waltham. Is there anything new on that?
There's a lot of work being done on that right now. I'm not privy to all the investigation that's occurring. But I remember when that happened, I had a conversation with Jerry Leone. Police officials throughout Massachusetts were very concerned about that. That was an unusual and highly suspicious incident that caused us all to worry about additional incidents.
Yeah, no, their throats were slit. There was marijuana sprinkled on the bodies.
Over them, right.
And there was some speculation at the time that it had some kind of extremist ties because of the method of murder.
Yeah, it's not something that we see every day. So when something like that happens, we all pay close attention. But there were no leads developed on it until recently.
What's going on, do you know at all, with the two buddies from UMass Dartmouth, the two Kazakh friends? The one, as we know, has been released. The third one has been released to home confinement. He was the one who lied to police officers or law enforcement when questioned about whether, he knew anything about the backpack or anything like that. But these other two have visa issues now because of what they did. They took the stuff and they threw it away and it ended up in a dump, which was amazing that they found it. But what's going on with those two?
Well, they're in custody and there's an investigation going on. I can't get into any more of the details of it. But with the loss of life and the injuries that occurred around this incident, it was beyond irresponsible not to call the police when this thing happened.
There's no question it was incredibly stupid. But is it criminal to the point where these two deserve 20 years in jail?
I think that we'll have to wait until all the facts come out on that and people can make up their own minds. But Sean Collier was alive before all this, so this is something that needs a really close look.
All right, here's another question you're probably not going to answer.
I'm sorry about that.
What's going on with those planes flying over Quincy and Weymouth? And as you know, the Boston Globe got access to a photograph of, and they got the tail number, and then figured out it was registered some P.O. box in Virginia. We had some other information that we were told at WGBH News that it was an FBI surveillance team. I mean, they're flying so low, it's a nuisance, and it's keeping people up at night. What's going on?
I don't have a clue. And if I did, I couldn't tell you. No, I don't know. I don't know what that's all about.
And it's just around and around and around in the same circles.
Right. Yeah.
Come on, you didn't ask?
No,
what if it was over your house? You'd ask.
I certainly would, but it isn't.
You don't know.
No. I mean, there's a lot of work going on all fronts, but I really don't know anything about that particular issue.
What did you think of, what do you know about the story today about the 13 deputy fire commissioners saying that they have no faith in the commissioner, Brera, because he apparently, they're claiming he abdicated his responsibilities on that day. Was that a political thing on the part of the deputies, or was there some truth to the fact that he didn't take a leadership position?
I've met Chief Brera. He's a very fine fire official. I've been very impressed with what he's done, and when I've seen him in the field, I saw him that day. He was out there. I think that there's a lot of stress among everybody that responded to this, and I think that that's going to present itself in various ways over the course of the next year. We have to stay very close to the officers that were in the middle of this, that will be experiencing PTSD symptoms over the course of the next few years. I think maybe because of all the stress of the attack, that there's a lot of things that will happen over the next few months.
Yeah. So was this a cry for help? Was it a union action? I mean,
yeah, it's hard to say. I'd leave that to Rod Frazier. I'm not really sure.
So we touched briefly on the marathon next year and the pops, but I mean, can you really prevent people from bringing stuff? Is that what it's going to come to? That you can't bring stuff to these big events?
No, I don't think so. I think that there'll be some additional checking. There'll probably be additional dogs that are sniffing in the crowd. There'll be some changes, and we'll try to tighten things up. But none of us want to live in a police state. None of us want to let the terrorists dictate what we do. So, at some level, the British government had it right and sort of carry on.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
and they did their marathon too.
They did
the Olympics, and then they did their marathon after this bombing.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So what's going to happen to Police Commissioner Ed Davis after Mayor Menino leaves office next November?
I've got till the end of the year with the mayor, and then we'll see what happens. I love doing the job that I'm doing, and I'm very happy with it. And I've got a lot going on right now. Does he appoint you for a
4-year term, or how does that work?
No.
You have a contract?
No, actually, I don't at this point in time. But I serve at the pleasure of the mayor, and I've very much enjoyed the time that I've been here. And the fact that he's leaving is a decision time, I think, for everybody. But right now, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to concentrate on getting this case and also keeping the crime rate down in the summer. This is a very busy time for us, so I've got a lot on my plate right now.
So would you want to stay on if the next mayor asked you to?
I love this job, and we'll see what happens. But I understand in changes of administration like this, people look for their own people, and that's the way this goes. So,
what do you think of the Ed Davis for Mayor campaign?
People have been very, very kind in some of the things that they've said, but I'm not a politician. I'm a cop, and I really enjoy this line of work.
Not a politician. There's a lot of people get recruited. Neither was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, not for me though. The deadline's passed, so it's out of the question.
Yeah. How quickly do you think these cases will? I mean, federal government drags things on, but I mean, will there be an effort to expedite this?
I'm sure there will. I mean, I've had many conversations with Carmen Ortiz. This is a priority of her office, and I'm sure she's doing everything that she can to move forward. They've got some big cases this year, though, and I don't think anything though will stand in the way of this thing being moving forward. They have the speedy trial rule; they have to get this done within a year. So I expect that to happen.
All right, Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis.
Very nice to see you, Emily. All right, nice to see you.
All right, that is it for Greater Boston. Adam Riley has a look at what's coming up this Friday on Beat the Press.
Emily, we've got a bit of a spying theme on this week's Beat the Press. The Department of Justice is spying on the Associated Press. Bloomberg News is spying on people who buy financial data from Bloomberg. We'll talk about both those controversies on Beat the Press this week.
All right, thanks, Adam. And tomorrow night on Greater Boston, Damien Eccles spent 18 years on death row for the brutal murder of 3 young boys. Today, he's free, and he's written a book about the experience. It is called Life After Death. That's tomorrow at 7. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.